What if motion capture didn't need a studio, a suit, or markers? What if a simple video could give you all the data a VFX team needs, from clean plates to lighting maps and 3D camera tracking? That's what Nikola Todorovic and his team have built. He's an award-winning filmmaker and VFX supervisor and co-founded Wonder Dynamics with Ty Sheridan. The company was acquired by Autodesk in 2024 and became Flow Studio, an AI-powered cloud platform designed to simplify 3D animation and VFX. In this episode, Nikola reveals how Flow Studio is redefining motion capture and what it means for artist studios and the next generation of storytellers. Flow Studio tackles one of the toughest parts of motion capture.
The biggest issue with mocap that we saw, first one is obviously, precision of the movement, especially because we're enabling mocap with a moving camera. It's easier to solve it when the camera is still, right? And what if you're going from a wide shot to a close-up, etc.
They build systems that can literally predict motion.
So we built something called motion prediction. That's essentially predicting those frames that it doesn't see. If you see only a half a body, what is the bottom half doing?
And it's all built for professionals who want full control over their shots.
We provide clean plate, we provide your lighting info, your HDR maps, but more than that, we also package it in a 3D file. So you get your DCC file, whether it's Maya or Blender or Unreal. So the idea for us was always give me as much information as you can from this shot or a plate.
Still, he's not afraid to call out where AI might go too far.
I think it's going to be a big mistake if we end up in a future where we're just generating synthetic actors. To me, I don't want to see a future where, actors are licensing their likeness and then they have 5-6 films being generated. I honestly do think that would be a failure.
And when it comes to artists, Nicola's message is simple: adopt or fall behind.
That's why I always tell artists, start learning these tools. They will help you, they will accelerate you. But if you ignore them, you will be behind.
But before we get into it, I wanted to thank our sponsor Meshi, who made this episode possible. Meshi is a real powerhouse for generating 3D assets with AI. You can start with a simple text or image prompt and get high-quality stylized 3D model in just a minute. Some of the recent feature updates include a new model with improved mesh and hard surfaces, the ability to input multi-view image for increased control on the output, and a brand new workspace where you can assemble your own scenes and use that as a prompt for video generation. Go to Mesh AI and try it out now. And now it's time to roll the title and welcome Nikola under the spotlight. Nikola, it is a real pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thanks for having me. As I mentioned, big fan of the show, so glad to be here.
Awesome. Nikola, look, I think I want to dive directly into the core of the conversation. And I wanted to ask you, what is currently the real bottleneck when it comes to AI-based mockup tool and how Flow Studio tackles that at the moment?
Yeah, so I think, for us, obviously, we started it because the motion capture is not that affordable or simple to use, right? So we really wanted to build something that's easy, that's video based, and it was we have about 25 models in our offering, and it's about 3 or 4 of them are around mocap. The biggest issue with mocap that we saw. Well, first one is obviously precision of the movement, understanding where you are in 3D space. Especially because we're enabling mocap with a moving camera, so it's not really like your traditional. You got to have a still camera and full body shot. So we had to from the get go understand film shots really well. Internally, we had something called a kind of PTA Boogie Nights test, which is okay. It works. It's easy. It's easier to solve it when the camera is still, right? What about when the camera is moving? What if you're going from a wide shot to a close-up, etc.? So that was kind of the first problem we had to solve. The second problem was around occlusion. So we had to build a solution really that solves, kind of. You're always going to get occlusion from actors, whether it's a different actor or they're behind an object or you lose them for a little bit. Because this is video-based mocap, it's just relying on RGB input, right, which is a video or an image. So if it doesn't see something, it hallucinates a lot of time, or it twitches, because obviously we're extracting it for 3D space. So we built something called motion prediction that's essentially predicting those frames that it doesn't see. So it's a big data set of synthetic data set we trained on to understand if you see only a half a body, what is the bottom half doing, right? If the character is sitting, you don't see a certain pose, etc.
So, I mean, At the end, there are currently, let's say, several of these AI mockup tools that tackles these challenges in different ways and also for a different audience. How does Flow Studio differentiate from the others?
Yeah, for us, when we launched 2023, but the mocap was something we were building in stealth mode for a while. We didn't want to just launch with mocap. It's not just a mocap solution. For us, it was more, how do I take my sequence or shot and extract all the passes that your artist would need to get to final VFX shot? So our philosophy was this: AI was overhyped, it still is. It's very hard to get final VFX, and our goal was never to get final VFX with it. It was more, hey, I'm going to take the footage, I'm going to analyze body pose, face pose, right? Facial estimation. I'm going to analyze lighting. I'm going to analyze what frame it is, camera move, and then I'm going to generate and then I'm going to generate passes for you as a VFX artist. So when we started, we said, okay, what passes do I really need? I'm going to get a video out of it. It's going to delete the actor. It's going to track it, get all that, and get that CG character instead. Already animated, light, and composed. But for us was, okay, the video is more a post-vis. It tells me what didn't work, but give me the elements. So for us, we provide, obviously AI mockup, we provide camera track, we provide clean plate, we provide your lighting info, your HDR maps, and also point cloud. But more than that, we also package it in a 3D file. So you get your DCC file, whether it's Maya or Blender or Unreal. So the idea for us was always like, give me as much information as you can from this shot or a plate, and then package it in my DCC, and that's where I'm going to edit and push it to the final shot. So obviously, some people just extract mocap, some people just camera track, some people just one point cloud. Depends what they're using it for. But we always wanted to not build a black box. That's really what we spend a lot of time in, because a lot of these, as I call them, 2D text to video solutions, they're still black boxes because it's hard to manipulate and edit. So for us, it was more, give me data, is that's what the artist needs. It just needs a lot of passes of data they can control and edit on.
So then I cannot even imagine how much you have learned from people using this. And it's not just people, but studio, right? That are making actually Hollywood great movies. So how are people using all these data that come from this video and then is extracted? You mentioned about different alpha mask, and you mentioned, let's say, the motion of the characters, the lighting, and so on. How are people actually using it on their daily workflows?
Yeah, so obviously on the VFX side of things, for us it was, how do we build something that contributes to the pipeline versus saying I'm going to replace the pipeline. So the most traditional usage we see is getting the plate, getting the place of actors, and then running it through Flow Studio, using the video you get out of it as post-viz that the editor can cut in. Because obviously, like we did a movie with Russo brothers that has a lot of robot characters. So obviously there, you don't want to edit with not seeing the robot size and what they're going to look like in the scene, etc. It's really hard for editor to make those decisions. But then you would give the data and exports you get out to your VFX house, which will then take those elements and then essentially, your animator will take the animation pass and fix it. Your compositor will take your clean plate pass and fix it. And then obviously you will put it all in that 3D file you get out of it, let's say in Maya, and then push the final renders. So obviously that's kind of straightforward. We also have the animation use case, which is more, we call it video to 3D scene, which actually estimates the footprint of the actors. So think of it as, and you'll see this in the video. Think of it as if I have a cut with wide shot to close up, cut to close up, maybe then a reverse shot. It's one camera, but multi placement of the camera. We actually calculated the distance that the actors went and all the cameras where the positions are, and then give you that 3D file with those cameras. Whether it's 4 or 5 cuts, those cameras be call it in virtual production, right? When you download it in Maya or Unreal. So we see that being used as well on animation projects. And then obviously some people will just use it for mocap, and that ranges. We're seeing film and TV. I think the guys from Boxel Studios did it on Superman Lewis, which I always like to show, because they cut down their time quite significantly on the kind of delivery. But also we've seen gaming companies using it for mocap, for in-game cinematics, but also in-game animation, down to marketing. obviously branding and marketing is something that you see kind of commercials. They usually accept technology a little bit quicker
And
than the studios.
And I think it has to do a lot with also different level of standards that they have, right? I mean,
Yes,
in a way, the way that the amount of content that an agency need to produce for marketing material tends to be much bigger and is much quicker than what a studio and a VFX house indeed produce on a regular
exactly.
basis.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also interesting. We're seeing TV shows using it on, kind of television, like something like Mass Singer, which traditionally you don't have time. Their turnaround time is 1 week between the episodes, right? So you don't really have time to do CG. So that was interesting. We had that early on as we launched, as one of those things that kind of surprised us. We're like, all right, this is good. It's kind of enabling new genres to add certain visual effects and CG elements that they didn't have before.
There is always this, let's say, hope. At least for my side, when I always think, okay, once this technology becomes so accessible, right, that you can do
Mhm.
an AI mockup, then anybody can become a sort of storyteller, right? And I think it's super fascinating because I've even, let's say, me myself experimented with Wonder Studio, and maybe I wanted to show you a little bit of clip that I made was some time ago. And because I was like, okay, I want to tell stories, and now AI is replacing us. Let me put something together, and I want to show it to you.
Mhm, mhm. That's some good acting skills there.
And the point is the following: it's like that was done without any knowledge, any
Mhm.
whatsoever knowledge, right? And it's just about some compositing on Premiere with some masking. That's about it. And I was curious, during these years in this industry, have you seen also people that were not able to do something to now, thanks to AI, be able to produce more or do different? Is that promise of AI is democratizing creation and storytelling coming through, or are we empowering those high end and specialized artists in do better, do faster? Where do we stand right now?
Yeah, I think both. I'm personally more excited about the expansion of the market, right? Which is we really started. Ty and I, my co-founder, started this because we started writing a film to make it meta. We started writing a film about robotics in the near future, and then we realized, okay, this is going to be too expensive. Let's start looking into this technology. Before the AI boom, we called it visual AI at the time. There was no term generative AI, but really for us, it was a means to an end. On how, how I I I really do believe that our industry is too difficult to break in, and it's too hard. You always need some kind of permission to make content, whether you need a producer to come on board or a studio to greenlit. And unfortunately, it's been harder than ever to get indie films made and get budget for it, because the industry has changed too much, right? We used to rely on the box office. There was pre-sales, there were DVDs, right? So indie filmmakers could package a film and go to Europe, get half of the budget, through pre-sale. And then also you get DVDs kind of sales that can help you. Now, obviously, with streaming, that's disappeared very quickly, and the industry wasn't ready for it. So it's kind of like AI arriving also was a shock for a lot of people. It was coming for a while, but I do think it's necessary because it's just too expensive to make stories. And to me, it was always frustrating. I come from a very small country. It took me a long time to even move to US, yet alone to break in the industry. So for me, I really see it as an enabler long term. Obviously, it needs to be done right. We need to be very cautious with the copyright. We need to be very cautious, not to steal art. But to me, I think at the end of the day, it's a tool that's going to help people tell their stories easier. And for us, it was always that's why we have this kind of tiers of offering. That we have a free tier that Autodesk introduced last month. That was very exciting for us because obviously we want to lower that barrier of entry, all the way up to like enterprise, which obviously are more for studios. But selfishly, I've always been more excited about indie creators, and we've had a lot of people, especially when we launched. We had close to 500,000 signups first month when we launched. A lot of people wrote to us and said, "Hey, we're a team of five. Could never do this before. Very excited." Obviously, a lot of YouTubers also, and they were excited to do it. To me, it was more of, "Hey, we're introducing people with 3D. They're coming in. They're learning more. They're trying to understand what clean plate is. How the camera track work. It is also film education in a way, because learning these traditionally CGs is a bit scary. It takes a lot, as you know, takes a lot of time to learn how to do it. So for us, it was, how do we make it simple? How do we enable more people to do it? And I don't know. I'm very optimistic long term what that's going to cause.
So you have mentioned several things, right? One is, for example, the fact of privacy and I mean data ownership, right? That's a very important topic. So what's been the hardest part of convincing Hollywood studio to start using these AI driven workflows?
I think for us, we approached it really. Obviously, they're all concerned about copyright. So from the day one, Ty and I were very. It's much harder actually to make something if you're doing it properly, right? It's easier to scrape the internet. So we said from the day one, we're like, we're not going to do that. For us, luckily, because we kind of observe nature, right, with the shot. We're trying to understand what's happening in the shot. We have models that are looking at it and saying, "Hey, is this the same actor from the previous shot? Is it a wide shot or a close up? What's happening in the shot?" Right. So I call it kind of observing nature, right? And to do that, we had to provide it with a lot of synthetic data, because footage helped, but we didn't have. It was very hard. The problem with training data only on footage, and that's why we're seeing these text-to-video models have limitations, because they don't understand 3D space. They're training it on video that really does not have the ground truth information on, hey, is this character 5 feet or 4.7, right? So for us, synthetic data was really unnatural. So we early on built a tool to help us produce a lot of synthetic data and then iterate. So for instance, and that synthetic data is 3D data, right? So the first limitations we had was the AI mockup data on the market that we could acquire and buy was mostly, kind of, you've seen mockup stages. There's a big cameras in up corner, so the angle is down and he sees the full body. That does not transform if I'm going on around the character and I'm pushing in a close up, etc. Right? That's where it breaks. So for us, we had to develop a lot of synthetic data that randomizes the camera moves, randomizes the lighting information, randomizes the noise information, or obviously animation, different facial performance, different animation, different shots in general. And so we based it off kind of the film language, obviously, that both Ty and I knew throughout our career, which is, okay, got to make sure to work on all of these. And then obviously that helps us. That kind of synthetic data helps you train other models. It's not just about training your animation or AI mockup. It's also help you training your, because we have alpha mask, right? So there's a segmentation model in there that you can improve based on that. There's a lighting model that you can improve based on that, right? Etc. So for us, it took us a while, right? It took us a while. It was a lot of effort to build these solutions, but it helped us, have something that we can go to studios and say, no, 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 we're not generating from scratch. We're extracting data from your plates. You're uploading your characters. You're uploading your footage, and we wanted to keep the movie magic as well. If you played with, so what you showed me, right? You shot with a camera. It's going to try to match that look the best it can. But if you're shooting it, with a professional grade camera and you're getting a really good lighting and you set up a great lighting, it will try to match that, right? So the better input is, the better output is going to be. And that to me is like, we don't want to get rid of cinematographers. We don't want to get rid of the actors, especially performances and all that. So that's why we were very, very deliberate on how we approach this problem.
I just wanted to have a quick break to let you know that if you enjoy the topic of AI tools for motion, I've put together a comprehensive list of 12 apps I personally tested that turn video into a 3D animation. You can get it right now by subscribing to the XRI Spotlight newsletters, where I share weekly interviews like this one with founders and creatives at the intersection between XR and AI. Just check out the first link in the episode description. And now, let's get back to the show. And so then when you think then about the production workflows, right, that are being now AI assisted, what part do you think is should never be replaced from a 3D artist?
I think you're talking about the post production, not just on set or pre production.
Correctly. So at this point, I might wonder, right? Because some of
Yes.
these shots could also be fully AI generated per se, right?
As we're seeing, yeah, with text to videos, I always say this. I think it's going to be a big mistake if we end up in a future where we're just generating synthetic actors. I obviously it works for certain things, right? For animation and others, but to me, I don't want to see a future where actors are licensing their likeness and then they have like 5, 6 films being generated. I honestly do think that would be a failure of going that direction. To me, being on
a
set,
failure for
yeah.
who? A failure for who? In a sense, for humans, for the studios, for the audience.
I think for all of us, consumers and creators, I think consumers and creators, because I don't know. To me, that movie magic on certain performances that you can get from actors that you like. It's even if technology gets there that we can imitate it. To me, you lose a little bit of that soul of art, right? And same from being on set. So that's why we wanted to keep as much as possible of that, but also we did it our way, because I'm a big believer that you can't really prompt a whole movie. So that multimodality for us is a big philosophy. Sure, I can prompt a lot of things, but I can't prompt a performance. I can't even describe certain. That's why we went with, AI mocap is one of our 25 models for a reason, because you can't even describe certain poses in English, and obviously, acting and reacting is very subtle. I could not describe your facial, performance right now. It's very hard to describe that. It's very subtle. Same with the camera move. This is my issue with the text to video solutions. They're trying to navigate camera in 2D space. You cannot navigate or explain a camera in 2D space. It's very, if you work with the directors, and VFX supervisors, how specific they are. And they're changing their mind a lot as you're discovering a shot, right? So move it an inch this way, change the light, get it to backlight to go this way a little bit, right? Or maybe have that performance changed by an inch, right? So it really is that specific. So for us, it was all about multimodality. All right, I'm going to use my video for certain input. I can prompt some other things, but I want to be in 3D space. That's why we stayed in 3D space. That's why I'm still a big believer in that. And I think with this generative models we're seeing on the market, they really went with like, let me generate and then we'll figure out how to control other things. And now you're going to have a lot of these researchers that don't really come from our space or from film industry trying to figure out, okay, how do I move an actor? Oh, I need a rig. What's a rig? Right? Or how do I move a camera? Okay, I can't really describe how to move a camera completely. Maybe I can draw on a 2D image. Oh, that doesn't work. Okay, I need a 3D editor. So we're kind of merging these two, ways of traditional CG and this research that's coming in. And then both sides are learning like, okay, I can do this here, but I can do this here, but I can't. So to me, I think it's important to respect also that the people that build these tools for the past 20, 30 years are actually very smart. And they did it as they were solving production. They were not building in vacuum. They were solving production issues per project they were working. Every project has a new production issue they had to solve.
So what you're saying is 100% true, especially when we look at, let's say, movies. I
Mm-hmm.
think that the landscape kind of changes if we're talking about producing other type of 3D motion content. We discussed
Mm-hmm.
before about ads or marketing, let's say, content. There is another word about games that is, again, is dealing with different challenges. So you as Flow Studio are focused on the VFX professionals. right? That is one of the main, and I hear it
One of
from
the
you, right?
usages, yeah,
One
obviously was
one
spans
of
over it. Yeah. Hmm.
exactly. Now, do you see that? Maybe the question is, how do you see other industry adopting? For example, in about gaming, do you see
Hmm.
the same problem and the same challenges in creating these AI workflows for them when compared, for example, to a VFX artist?
Yeah, I think quite similar. As you know, a lot of artists that work on films will go and work on some major games, right, or some XR projects. That approach of turning an idea to whether a game or cinematic or a movie, and it shares a lot. It shares a lot of similar things. It shares a lot of language, right? Language of performance and the camera and lighting. You'll get it in all three. Obviously, different problems. I'd say like really the difference is that final 20%. Even if AI gets you 80%, that final 20% has different approaches on how you're solving that. And to your previous question that you asked me about kind of how does that change the production and the artist. I always get a bit frustrated. I go to a lot of these I do a lot of talks and kind of try to educate people on AI, even from early days. Ty and I, back 2020, 2021, we're telling people like this is coming, start like learning about it. But it was too sci-fi back then. Um, I hear a lot of, still to today, I hear a lot of, obviously it's easy to say we're not going to replace artists, we're just accelerating, which we are. But also, I don't think it's fair to just say, hey, everything's going to stay the same. It's not going to stay the same. A lot of these titles that we have as an artist and skills we did was kind of introduced by these tools, right? So for instance, you have your rigging artist, you have your texture artist, you have your grooming artist, right? uh, um, they specialize in certain things because these tools require this split of very specialized skills. I think that's going to change. That's why I always tell artists, start learning these tools. They will help you, they will accelerate you. But if you ignore them, you will be behind. When I was early in my career, I was very lucky to work with some amazing VFX supervisors, and some of them that were veterans of it were still watch, a FX PhD and learn weekly on it. And I was very fascinated by it. I was, 20-year-old, and I was asking, someone who's like 50 and they've done amazing movies, major blockbusters with, Spielbergs of the world. And I see them watch these tutorials, and I was like, why do you do that? And you know, this one VFX supervisor, she goes, well, if I don't, this industry moves really fast. If I don't, I'll stay behind. My job is not guaranteed if I'm not learning constantly. And I thought that was great. Kind of, we see it a lot in VFX happening, but I do think there's a dramatic shift coming in how we do our work. I do think these artists that are especially specialized, they train an eye, and that's really what comes out of it. So you can get better using these tools, but really what you're getting better at is training your artistic eye to recognize when something's good and something's not good. So recognize when to stop and say this is ready for delivery. This is what I see with a lot of young artists is they don't have that eye yet. So I don't think AI is going to change that. You're still going to produce, maybe it's going to look nicer and you're going to prompt something, wow, this is great. But I do think the artists that are very, very, specialized and they have these years of experience, them using AI tools, that's when we're going to see really the new wave and better content. And um, I, I I also am a big believer is that the fear comes from our, we kind of tend to be pessimistic and say, all right, if something is going to take 10 minutes to make, our industry is, done, right? Now it's easy. But I always argue, say, look, no, that we admire art because we look at something. If I look something that Cameron's doing or Scorsese doing, I admire it because I'm always thinking, how in the world did they do that? That's so hard. Like, how did they do that shot? How did they make me care about this character so much, right? So that's what's hard. And I think whatever we make easy, we're gonna have artists that are gonna push it more. We're not gonna go and want to pay something that someone made for $100 and we're gonna go in theaters, right? Because someone made it in a week. We're not gonna want to do that because we're gonna recognize it's lazy. We get very frustrated. When you go out, you see a movie, and you walk out of theater so mad you know, because
Yeah,
you
it
recognize it
happened.
was lazy writing, right? It's lazy writing. I don't like it. Something clicks in your head, you get more frustrated that you gave 2 hours of your life to this. I think same is going to happen. We're just going to have a new baseline, and then the ceiling is going to increase, and that's what people forget. We just don't know what that is yet.
So there is an important thing that you said is that artists need to, of course, learn and get and let's say stay updated. That's one important thing. Of course, there is the aspect of becoming kind of a curator in a way, right?
Hmm.
It's like understanding what is nice, what is, let's say, a better shot than another shot, and becoming, let's say, having developing an eye, right, for well made content, animations or stories.
Hmm. Hmm.
Is there something that you would say, okay, I'm a 3D artist, maybe there are, for example, some that are maybe new and are trying to break into this industry, right? Is there some other advice or let's say tip that you have seen successful 3D artists help them move forward in this time?
Hmm. I would say don't get too attached to your title, because that changes, right? You're an artist first and foremost, right? Are you a rigger or your texture artist, etc.? Maybe that title will change. So for me, I think I would have an open mind and play with a lot of these tools. That's really what I would do, and figure out how does, don't look at it as an enemy, because I don't think it's going to change. You can't really throughout the history, if you study, people always push back on a change in our industry. Whether it's digital cameras, every cinematographer swore they would never shoot on nothing but film, right? I mean, talkies, when they came out, people were like, nobody wants to watch after stock. Why would they want to watch a stock, right? So there's always color TV was considered a fad, right? When it came out, people thought there's never why would people want to watch color? So there's always this technological advancement, but I think at the end of the day, we just got to remember it's a means to an end, and what are we trying to do is tell a story. So is this making it easier to tell a story? Good. How do I get better at my craft? Use some of these tools. But obviously, I would also say my advice to a lot of artists would be, um, you don't have to become an engineer, but also be open to start looking at some of these solutions. I always tell young people, the good thing, I was an artist, Ty and I didn't plan to build a tech company, right? Good thing about the way we are with AI right now, it's still really early. There's a lot of open source solutions out there. You can learn how they work, and you can figure out how to make your own pipeline. That's what excites me, because you have your tools you're used to, but also be open to look what's out there, not necessarily commercially, but go out there and read a research paper. You might not understand it completely, but you can use certain other AI tools to help you understand it better, and then start looking for some open source. You'll be surprised. You might get an idea to build a certain pipeline, and someone will hire you because you approached it differently. I mean, I'll tell you a story. I had a mentor, Bob Schwab, from early days. I was playing tennis on the weekends and teaching tennis people, and that kind of helped me meet some of the very successful people that I wanted to pick their brain and understand. This is, right after when I was in college. I wanted to understand, kind of how do I get to that position. And Bob, who's today my mentor for the past 13 years, always told me, he's like, don't sit on a bench and be like everybody else waiting for your opportunity. He said, how creative you are in your art, be equally creative in the other. Like, whether you're marketing yourself as a brand or business or etc. And that stuck with me, because I realized I worked with some directors that were really established, and they came to the point of career where they're struggling also to kind of, get another project, etc. And that really kind of broke my heart, because some of these directors, I was like, they're so talented. They've done such amazing thing, but you're only as good as your last project. So I think a lot of young people are aware of this and trying to, I use my knowledge. My first there was a big project one time I did that I kind of figured out as a VFX artist how to do this new. It was the early days of 360. We were doing this GoPros and stitching and didn't know much about it, but I started putting this pipeline together. And I'm not a TD, right? But I started like researching, doing, and then I solved it. And a 2-day project turned into a 3 months project, turned into a year project that actually got me to understand these new technologies that actually introduced me to AI way earlier because of this one project, right? But I say, you sometimes get hired because people are like, who knows this? besides just being like your regular kind of, on the paper artist. So I guess, I ramble a lot, but what I'm trying to say is like,
No, I think
don't box
it
yourself
makes
in.
sense.
Yeah.
And okay, this is valid now, especially that is such a fast-paced moment of change for artists, right? But honestly, it's valid for any individual. Like having also an entrepreneurial spirit and looking for solution and being with open eyes and being curious. It's something that is going to help you in many different ways. Either knowing the right people, marketing yourself, learning something new, and yeah, I mean, honestly, there is also nothing bad in staying where you are if you like it and if
Of course.
nothing around you is changing, right? Because there are
Yep.
also these words where it's like, okay, we are here, things are steady. Now if you like and you would like to stay in a place and keep doing a certain type of job in this current landscape, then things might change around you and it's up to you to change
100,
accordingly and react.
100%. I would say, back to mentorship. I think when you're a young artist, look for mentors. Look for mentors, people that are very successful, in their 60s, 70s. They're looking for legacy. They want to transfer the knowledge. As long as you're not trying to take advantage of them, you just really want knowledge. And I think the other thing is the comfort, to me. Like if you feel like you're too comfortable, that's not good. You gotta always put yourself in this uncomfortable situation. That project I mentioned with kind of stitching in 360, I remember I was after college and I was crazy in debt. Maybe like I was waiting. I was waiting for my visa to renew, and I couldn't work. And for you know, uh, yeah, I think I was behind maybe 8 months for my rent. And I got this, I got my visa approved, and I got this opportunity. And they asked me, "Do you know much about stitching?" I don't know, maybe I was 22. And I said no, but I said yes, but I knew I had, and it was terrible pay. It was terrible pay. And It was my birthday weekend, and my girlfriend at the time bought us tickets to a concert. So I called her. I'm like, "Do you mind if I do this? I don't know when we wrap. She's like, if you think, and I said yes, that I know it, but I didn't know it. I knew I had 3 days to learn, and I'm like, I can learn anything in 3 days. So you got to take these risks, I think. And it's funny enough, looking back, really that 2-day projects that I was really uncomfortable, but I knew I could learn, ended up bringing me to something that gave me an idea to start a company, for Thai Night to start a company. So like small things like this as an artist, you're going to have this opportunity that really you're not going to feel ready for. You're never going to feel ready for. And I will always tell artists, just, just go for it. It's not going to be comfortable, but guess what? Even, Spielbergs of the world and Camerons of the world are not showing up on set super comfortable. They're nervous too. You just don't see it. You just don't see it, but they're also nervous, right? So I've worked with some amazing directors, and when you get to know them, they open up a little bit. They tell you, yeah, uh, you know, extremely nervous. Like I didn't think
Yeah, it
I'd be
was
able to do it.
nerve-wracking.
Yeah, yeah. So
Absolutely.
I think that's what when you're young, you always have, as an artist, you always have imposter syndrome, especially the way our industry is formed, right? And so that's why I think the AI long term will help, because we gotta lower that barrier of entry where it's just so hard to break in this industry, and then it's also hard to make a living out of it. And when you try to explain to your parents, if you live somewhere in a small country that doesn't really have that established film industry, and you tell them, "Hey, I want to be a filmmaker," to them they're just concerned about your survival. So yeah.
It's true. It's true. But I think it's gonna change. And I mean, video is changing, content is changing, so the industry is changing. And I think it's great to be in the industry. And I imagine also Flow Studio is changing, right? In a sense. So it is not just. Let's be clear. If that was not clear enough, it's just not just an AI mockup, right? Where you get a
Hmm.
GLB of that. So there is many more data layers of data that are provided to then composite shots, right? We have talked about mask, we've talked about the camera tracking, lighting, and more. Now, what more, like, where is Flow Studio headed? What are you
Hmm.
guys working on?
The long term vision for us is, as I mentioned, we really are building that separation of an element. You have your character, you have your environment, you have your camera, and it's in 3D space. Right now, we're still seeing that in text to video as merged and trying to edit it in 2D space. So really what we build And what you see with these passes, it's a foundation for us to try to understand the shot as much as we can in a spatial environment and to have that spatial consistency. Because that's a hard problem. Right now, most of the shots you're having like kind of text to video of 5 seconds or so of generating. Our long-term really goal is to have that, because I do think it's very important. The 3D is harder to solve than 2D. That's why we're seeing so much progress in video, because 3D is much harder because you got to have precision down, to the final pixel in 3D space, which obviously, especially as XR comes more and more prevalent in our industry, I think you're going to see more and more progress in.
There is another element that it's present, for example, in other tool, and is this ability to type a form of motion and that motion be imported into the character. Is that something that you see complementary, or is just like another way of doing things? And if so, to who do you think that might benefit?
I think you mean as kind of AI mockup solution as you're importing video and then getting motion out of it?
No, I'm referring to, for example, like do a somersault or a hero
Okay.
landing.
Text to motion.
And
Text to motion. Oh yeah,
correct,
yeah.
yes.
No, I think I think super beneficial. I think it can get you to a starting point. It's really good for background characters, definitely, because you don't need to record yourself or animate if you just wanna. Maya has a solution that I really like, Motion Maker, that came out recently. That is just that, you get a like little A point to B point, and you describe what you want, and the character is going to run or move there, which I think it's going to generate that motion. The point there is like, let me get you fast to something that's traditionally a bit boring, right? If you've done regular walking animation a million times in your life, like doing each keyframe gets a little bit old. To me, the fun part of being an artist is those, as I mentioned, the creative part, which is 20%. I remember when I first started as a compositor, you get in industry, you think, oh, I'm going to do so many incredible creative things, work with the directors. Then you realize, no, actually, you're doing a lot of monotone, boring stuff. You don't really have
Grinding.
you don't have a creative input. So I think the text animation is definitely important, but I do think it needs to complement other things, right? So sometimes I want to play it as a video with AI mockup. Sometimes I'm going to do text animation. And sometimes I'll just go traditional keyframe editing. So that's really what we're doing with Flow Studio, is trying to enable all these multimodality and editability to that. So that's why for us, like that, kind of partnership and then acquisition with Autodesk was no brainer, because our visions really aligned in understanding why we need to stay in 3D space.
And this is another important point, being the acquisition by Autodesk, right? So my question, and especially in that direction, is how that influenced, and if in any way, the direction of what was Wonder Dynamics before, and also how do you see these workflows integrating with existing, with the Maya, with the Blender of this world, with Autodesk suites? Can you share something about it?
Yeah, absolutely. As an entrepreneur, your biggest fear around acquisition is that you're just basically going to get acquired and someone's going to turn you in a plugin and then tell you what to do with your product, right? It's your baby. You spend so much time with it. You're emotionally attached. Dana Colella, who runs M&E in Autodesk Media Entertainment, from the day one, that's why we had about a year-long partnership before acquisition. From the day one, she said, look, you're an expert in what you're building. We showed her the roadmap. We showed her kind of like the 5-year vision. And basically she said, you're going to run this. I'm not going to micromanage. I'm not going to tell you what to do. We're just going to work together on an AI strategy and things like this. And it's been true like that. So kind of that level of trust is really important, especially if you're an entrepreneur. So, even though we're part of acquisition, we still have that startup feel and the mentality to it. And that was important for me and Ty. We were not planning to get acquired. It was something that kind of came out of this natural partnership we had. So we keep pushing that. And then obviously for us, what was important, we're collecting a lot of knowledge from other departments inside of Autodesk, right? Especially on knowledge on 3D from Maya team and Flame team and other in it. As far as kind of merge, we obviously have that plugin when you're making your character in Maya that you can import it quickly, and obviously downloading all the files as you're exporting your Maya file from either live action or animation project type out of Flow Studio. Obviously, we're going to work together on a lot of kind of merging technologies between the Maya teams and the other teams. So the idea is that you can have data to flow really naturally between it. That's the idea of flow in general. Obviously, Flow Studio, you have flow capture, flow production tracking. The idea is that I have this platform that I can then share data easily and more natively between it. But for us, obviously working with the Maya team has been the most exciting part of it.
Nikola, thank you very much. I think we have covered, let's say, a lot of ground, and I mean, it's exciting to see now all this new feature coming out. Do you have anything to add?
No, thanks for having me. As I mentioned, I'm a big fan of your show. I think I mentioned earlier before we start recording. Obviously I stay up to research a lot with AI and everything, but sometimes reading documentation is not as fun as watching your show. So a lot of times I was looking at certain products and your show would pop up. So I appreciate you having me.
Awesome. Nikola, thank you very much. And I encourage everybody to just try out the free tier because, I mean, just being able to turn yourself into motion, get these rich, let's say, data sets that you can use, I think it's super valuable. So, Nikola, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for listening in. If you like the show, remember to leave a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or a thumbs up on YouTube. It really helps me keep doing this and shine the spotlights on the greatest founders and makers, pushing the boundaries of XR and AI. Also, make sure to check out the show page xraispotlight.com, where you can find more conversation like this one. Till next time.